שלום לכולם, אני רוני ארז, אני מנכ"לית משותפת של מרכז לקיימות, ואני מאוד שמחה להיות פה ולשדר אליכם את הרעיון המרתק הזה. אני אעבור לאנגלית. Hello, my name is רוני ארז, and I am the co-director of the Heschel Center for Sustainability, and I am very happy to introduce you, Amy Chester, the director of Rebuild by Design, to come here and talk to us today about your experience with rebuilding after disasters, after other, occurrences that require rebuilding. So if you could please just introduce yourself shortly and also introduce the organization and what you're doing generally.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you for having me here today. As you said, I'm Amy Chester. I'm the director of Rebuild by Design. And by background, I'm a political organizer and a strategist, but I work with a lot of architects and engineers and community organizations to rethink neighborhoods. Rebuild by Design was began after Hurricane Sandy. We were incubated by the federal government with President Obama's Hurricane Sandy Task Force set aside $1 billion of the disaster recovery funds to say to communities, hey, if you're going to come up with a really big idea and you want to get it implemented and it's going to help you in the future withstand future climate events, then, possibly we'll support it. So Rebuild by Design was a process that brought together global experts to work with local governments and communities to rethink their neighborhoods in the face of Hurricane Sandy.
And what makes your rebuilding efforts and your rebuilding approach different from others?
Well, I would say the biggest difference is that we are always looking at both physical resilience and social resilience and want to make sure that all of our projects operate to enhance communities 365 days a year, not just on the days where there's an extreme climate event. And we also look across hazards. So it's not just about keeping out flood. It's about keeping out flood. It's about cooling our air. It's about community health risks. It's about everything that we can possibly kind of stack together, these co-benefits. So every dollar we spend actually goes a lot further. It's not just about keeping the water out, but it's about, lowering asthma rates, for instance.
But how do you, I don't know, convince, or how do you make sure that this balance between having to build fast and, minimize expenses, how do you balance it with the will for the solution to be sustainable, to be ready for other risks, to incorporate public, which is, I think, a large factor of your work? How do you give us tips on how to make sure that things are done the right way?
I mean, don't be fooled that reaching out to the public slows down a process. It does not. The public are very intelligent people, of course. And if you tell them we have 5 months to make this decision and we have X amount of dollars to make the decision, they will help you make the decision in the box that you create. We heard from many communities, oh, we can't replicate Rebuild by Design because it's going to take too long. Look how long the Sandy projects have taken. And you know what? Those same communities don't have projects. They don't have shovels in the ground. But this past Saturday, I was able to go to our Living Breakwaters project off of Staten Island and celebrate its opening. It's actually happening. So one thing to remember is that building back is going to take a long time no matter what. So one of the ways that you can make sure you're getting what you want is through education and organizing and making sure that the communities on the ground really want what they're gonna, what you're proposing or what they're proposing. They want to see it through. And if they want to see it through, they will advocate for it through election cycles and through funding cycles and be there and be that voice that says, no, this is how we want to build back. Everywhere, no one trusts each other. But if you can start from a place of understanding and you can learn together and you share the same facts, it goes a lot further. So I absolutely believe 100% that things will happen faster if you do community outreach from the beginning. And community outreach has to include education. It's not just about saying, hey, we want to do this, and that's it. No, it's about educating people. What are the options out there? Why are we choosing this option? How can we choose options together? Why don't things work? Where the government funding comes from? What will happen if we get more funding? What will happen if we lose some funding? And have those open conversations. One of the challenges is that people that go into government aren't trained to have those conversations. So you and I just talked briefly, and we both have a kind of background in organizing, and we're very trained and we're very comfortable. But many government people are scared. They don't want to go in front of a community and say that they don't have the answers. But the truth is that nobody has the answers. We are in a new era that we are facing with climate change, among lots of other challenges that have already existed, and they will, continue to exist. And we need to think about what does humility look like to go to a place and say, we don't know all the answers, but we can figure this out together if you give us the opportunity.
Can you give me maybe an example of something that came from public participation that surprised you or surprised the planning team? Some sort of what you call, because you said that the public are intelligent and they know what they need. And I'm wondering, like, how does it look like, this kind of intelligence, this kind of know-how?
I was part of a team that created Plan YC, which was Mayor Bloomberg's kind of huge sustainability agenda that was then copied worldwide by many different mayors. And we did a lot of enormous outreach before we put forward what the recommendations are, or the initiatives, I think they were called. We had about 140 initiatives that were all funded when we put out this agenda. One of them was thinking about green roofs. Now, this is 2005, so it's almost 20 years ago, and green roofs weren't as common as they are today. And actually, they're not even that common today. They're still, few and far between. And we were thinking about green roofs and creating incentives around green roofs to lower temperature inside the building and to absorb stormwater. And when we went out and we started talking about green roofs to community members, we learned pretty fast that communities wanted green roofs to have more extra like recreation space, to have essentially like a beautiful environment in their home that they can go to because they don't live near a park or they don't live near somewhere else. And just listening to community members enabled us to talk about green roofs in a different way when we put out the report. So it wasn't just, green roofs for the sake of cooling temperatures. It was green roofs so communities can have access to additional community space. So I do believe in both of those instances that if you listen and if you can train yourself as a government person to not say no, but to say, let me think about this for a second, maybe you can deliver to what the community is asking for.
Another thing that I found interesting that you've said before is that the aim of the projects that you're involved with, it's not to build again what was there before and got ruined, but to build better, to build more resilient, to have I don't remember the exact words you use, but more than one advantage, more than one use. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think we have some really good examples of that. And, one kind of easy example to understand is creating a park. You can create a park as we've done in Hoboken, or as the city has done, but we started with the rebuild by design ideation of it, as a park that's in a community that floods, and they have multiple parks that pump water from the surrounding community and store it under the park when there is heavy rain. This is a community that had been flooded for years and years. It used to be an island that was filled in, and every time there's heavy rain, it would flood basements all over. And they created these strings of parks. And if you're in the park, you would never guess what the other uses are. And a park's a good example because it could be used 365 days a year. Go there, meet your, community members, and have your kids go and run around. There's major benefits for cleaning air. There's major benefits for lowering asthma and health and mental health outcomes. And you have this enormous benefit of being able to store stormwater. Another park that we've created in New York City or is under construction is very similar. It's called the Big U. It changes in different neighborhoods, but essentially what it is, it's a ring around the whole southern tip of New York City. And what a park will do there, a different park called East River Park, is it's going to stop storm surge from coming. So the park is at the waterfront. And during Hurricane Sandy, as the East River rose, all the water went into the park and then next to the highway and then into the community. This park is now going to be lifted 8 to 10 feet. It's 57 acres. I don't know how many hectares that is. I am sorry, but it is an enormous park. I think it's 1.1 miles long. And the entire thing will be lifted 8 to 10 feet. So the stormwater will never be able to reach the community that's behind it. So I think that's a very easy example for people to understand.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really making an opportunity out of a bad event.
Especially in Hoboken, where those areas were not parks before. They were brownfields, they were areas of industrial use. In the New York example, in the Manhattan example, that was a park. So it is rebuilding a park to have additional benefits.
What are the challenges that we should take into consideration? What will we come across that will be stumbling blocks, things that we should think about in advance to maybe try and do this process here a bit smoother, something that you've learned from processes before?
Don't expect it to be easy. None of this is easy. Not everybody's going to agree. It's okay that people don't all agree as long as you have some common ground and common facts. It's going to take a long time and it's going to be expensive. The truth of it, though, is that we're all paying for it. Every time that there is a disaster, our tax dollars are going to build back. So we all have a personal interest in the rebuilding due to any reason. And we need to make sure that our interest is said and articulated and very clear that we want to build different.
Thank you. I think maybe to finish off, I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people that disaster really struck for them, that their homes um, were ruined, that their communities were affected. And we are kind of in this point in time at the moment. And I was wondering if there's any message of hope from a few years after, from looking in hindsight, if you can, I don't know, tell us something about these communities and their sentiment towards the rebuild process.
The communities feel really proud that they were part of this process and that there is something to show for all of their work. It takes a long time, but it's interesting because we've also noticed that when a community or a community member who has not been at the table sees the project and knows that their community members were at the table, so their neighbors were at the table, they actually kind of jump into and feel that pride. So it doesn't even have to be the specific person that has participated, but the fact that there was a collaborative process and that their neighbors wanted this project to happen. We have seen this incredible rippling effect of oh no, this project's different. This process is different because my neighbors were there.
Great. Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you for taking the time. And I hope we will all be inspired by those learnings that you've told us about. And yeah, have have a good I don't know what time is it morning for you? Have a good day.
It is still, it's about 11:30 in the morning.
So have a good day and thank you very much.
Thank you
And
for having me.
you're welcome.